Joe Rogan just said the quiet part out loud, and now everybody wants to know the same thing. Who was really around Jeffrey Epstein? Who got infected? And why does it feel like the full story still hasn't been told? Once you start digging into the details, it gets uncomfortable fast. Rogan keeps coming back to the same question. How deep did this actually go? And that is exactly why this story keeps exploding again and again. Not because people are guessing for fun, but because every new document, every new memo, and every new celebrity name seems to raise even more questions than answers. I mean, you gotta think, man, if a guy like that is running these kind of parties with all these rich and powerful people, how many different worldwide decisions can be manipulated because of these people and the compromises you have on them, right? It's really a brilliant thing to do from an intelligence perspective. Think about all the things that people have gotten away with. Yeah. I mean, look at this Ghislaine Maxwell thing. Yeah, Ghislaine Maxwell, I've said this before, I'll say it again. She's the only person ever to be tried and arrested and put in jail for. Where's the list of the people that she to? Well, the problem is, we know that they're head state, billionaires, wealthy people, famous people's brother. Where? Yeah, King's brother. Where's this list? The way he kept circling back to Ghislaine Maxwell being locked up, but somehow there's still no clear list of who was actually involved on the other side. And that's where things start to feel off, because think about it like this. If someone is convicted of, then logically there has to be people on the receiving end. That's not a small detail. That's the whole story. It seems like some names are still kept hidden. So you're trying her and convicting her for a crime where if you're that means you're into someone. And if that someone is an American citizen or a British citizen, that is an illegal act. So who are these people that have committed this illegal act? Because they're responsible as well, right? So who are these people and how is there no discussion of this? Because Rogan isn't just asking random questions. He's basically saying what a lot of people have been thinking but didn't say out loud. Where is that list? Who are these people? And then this happened. The conversation shifts to Jeffrey Epstein himself. And here's the part nobody's talking about. It's not just about one guy or one island. It's about the people around him. And Rogan keeps asking about the list. Yes, the list with big names. Well, there's no discussion because Jeffrey Witzy's face hung himself in his prison cell. Yeah. Which is insanely bizarre, right? That one. That's insane. Oh, the cameras just happen to not work. How convenient. Yeah, there's ligature marks around his neck and a fractured neck bone. No worries. Yeah, that's what happens when you hang yourself. We were having a cup of coffee, a red too. It's a very disturbing thing. But the most disturbing thing is that there's no list. Like that's a real crime, right? Well, isn't the story, the anecdote isn't it that, isn't Andrew supposed to have given somebody 12 million quid to go away? Yeah. Maria Farmer, I think she was the chick who was working the front desk at his office in Manhattan. She was literally on video saying that all this about Bill Clinton on the jet going to the island, hanging out with Trump and all this stuff. And the right-wing people, like people I know, my parents and like older folks I know in Florida, will say, you know, she came out, thank you for exposing Bill Clinton for being and doing all this stuff. And Virginia Gray, after this happened, she's like, you guys didn't listen to the whole tape. People like Maria Farmer and Virginia were literally saying things on video, but people only heard what they wanted to hear. Like one side focuses on Bill Clinton, the other ignores what was said about Donald Trump. And Rogan and his guest is like, you guys didn't even listen to the full tape. She's like, I was telling you that Trump was at the penthouse 3 days a week and visiting him, but you guys don't want to hear that. And it's like, you know, it's just this weird thing. Like if you do the math, it's gotta be so many high-level powerful people that are somehow compromised. And do I think like Clinton and these guys are, no, I don't think that at all. But if you were Jeffrey Epstein, I think it's super plausible to assume that he would try to trick them with like a girl who looks old, right? Who is possibly like on the borderline of being 18. And then this hits. If you really do the math, there has to be so many high-level powerful people somehow compromised. Not saying they all knew exactly what was going on, but think about it. If you're Jeffrey Epstein, it's super plausible you trick people, and now you've got leverage forever. And you say, oh yeah, this girl, she's 18, 19, 20, whatever. Meanwhile, she's like 17 and they had no idea. And they have video footage, and in like a court of law, if I'm the judge, I'm going to let him, like, of course they lied to him. And this is not like some young girl, obviously, but they lied. But like in like the court of public opinion, you're never going to win in that case, right? That comes out. But it gets worse. These are people who can't just trust anyone. So they trusted him because everything looked locked down. And even after he got arrested, they were still meeting him. That's the crazy part. So now you're sitting here like, how deep does this actually go? Well, there are some serious allegations of Trump, the current president of the United States. Newly released documents that were missing from the Epstein files contain serious unverified allegations against President Trump. The Justice Department posted 3 FBI memos describing interviews with a woman who accuses both Jeffrey Epstein and President Trump of her when she was a teenager. The White House calls the accusations completely baseless. Suddenly, new FBI memos come out tied to Jeffrey Epstein. And now Donald Trump is being mentioned in unverified allegations. And you're sitting there like, wait, what? This individual was interviewed by the FBI 4 times, and initially only 1 memo was released in that initial batch of documents released by the Justice Department, and that was an interview where she made allegations against Jeffrey Epstein, but not against President Trump. Now, yesterday, these additional summaries were released, and they detail the types of allegations that she made against President Trump, where she describes being introduced to him. She alleges that he asked everyone to leave the room and, quote, mentioned something to the effect of, quote, let's teach you how little girls are supposed to be, and then describes an encounter where he pushes her head down to his, and then told agents she bit Trump, who then allegedly struck her and said something like, get this little exploitive the hell out of here. Now in her 3rd interview, she allegedly said that she was receiving threatening calls, and then this hits. The woman herself reportedly questioned why she was even coming forward since the statute of limitations had passed. So now you've got claims, denials, and a lot of confusion all at once. And right when you think this story can't get any messier, this drops and just adds fuel to the fire. Now people are saying the DOJ actually pulled back 16 files from the Epstein release. Yeah, deleted them after putting them out. Looks like the DOJ has pulled back, deleted 16 files off their website that had been there yesterday. And again, I want to add that this was already in on top of the fact that the DOJ had not released all of the files in compliance with the law. So, what are the legal implications here of the fact that A, we didn't get the full breadth of files, and B, even some of the files that were released were then taken back, presumably, to protect Donald Trump. And that's what they're doing, everyone. They are in federal law, a law that Congress passed, signed by Donald Trump that said, number 1, the records have to be released within 30 days. All of them. Did we get all of the records on Friday? No. So that was of law number 1. Number 2, it said that it has to include all unclassified records, documents, communications, and investigative materials. Have you seen any investigative materials? Have you seen any memos between the FBI and prosecutors, or between FBI agents and each other? No. That would be number 2. Number 3, it can only redact names under limited circumstances. For example, to protect victims. We saw Brian, pages, dozens of pages upon dozens of pages in a row of redactions. Not just names of victims, but all kinds of things. And you know whose name we didn't see? We didn't see Donald Trump's. That's another. It says that the only people that have to have their identities protected are victims. Or it was written expressly that items could not be redacted simply because they would cause embarrassment to, for example, political figures. And then when the DOJ spoke with Fox News, they said that items were redacted expressly because people were either politically engaged or government officials. And so this is in direction of the letter of the law. How could they not only refuse to abide by the full law, which stated that all of the files had to be released, but then completely twist upside down what the law actually says, and basically where it says you can't do something, they expressly said that they will. And then this happens. Reports say some documents that had names before suddenly don't anymore, including mentions tied to Donald Trump. Meanwhile, officials claim everything is being handled properly. So now you've got missing files, pulled documents, heavy redactions, and zero clear answers about who's being protected and why. And while this is happening, Bill Clinton is getting interrogated by reporters over his Jeffrey Epstein ties. Any comments on the alleged allegation of your production with Jeffrey Epstein? Moreover, Bill Clinton is being dragged right back into the spotlight with a congressional subpoena over his connections to Jeffrey Epstein. So, here's what's happening. Lawmakers basically want answers. They want to know about any meetings, any travel, what he knew, and when he knew it. And yeah, that includes all those past rumors about flights and visits that people have been arguing about for years. But it gets interesting. Clinton isn't expected to show up. Instead, his team is reportedly trying to push for a closed-door deposition. And you already know what that means. Less public pressure, less spectacle. We have breaking news. The deadline is here for former President Clinton to comply with a congressional subpoena to testify about Jeffrey Epstein. The House Oversight Committee subpoenaed former President Clinton and former Secretary Hillary Clinton in its investigation into the Epstein files, but the Clintons are not expected to comply. Our team has been staking out Capitol Hill so far, no sign of the former president or his wife, and now the committee's chairman is threatening to hold both Clintons in contempt. And then this hits. If he straight up refuses, Congress could move to hold him in contempt. That's serious. We've seen people actually serve time for that. Now, whether it goes that far here is another question, but the pressure is definitely building. We know that Republican lawmakers want to ask former President Clinton about any contact that he had with Jeffrey Epstein. That includes meetings, travel, what he knew about Epstein and when. And if he does not comply, which we know he is not expected to, we could see the House Oversight Committee move to hold the Clintons in contempt. And that would escalate things quite significantly. For example, we saw Trump allies Peter Navarro and Steve Bannon actually serve time behind bars for contempt. There's no indication that things would go that far here, but that certainly does increase the pressure on the Clintons. Meanwhile, there are still millions of Epstein-related documents that haven't even been released yet. So now you've got subpoenas, missing files, and unanswered questions all piling up. And you're sitting there like, how many more names are still hidden in all of this? Then you look deeper into Bill Clinton and Jeffrey Epstein, and you realize this story isn't just rumors. There's a long timeline people keep bringing up. Bill Clinton features prominently in the Epstein files. He has never been accused of wrongdoing and has said he wasn't aware of Epstein's crimes until after his death. But the pair of them, the former president and the disgraced, had a long relationship. So here's what people point to. Their connection goes way back to the 90s with donations and events where Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell were present. At that time, there's no allegation of wrongdoing, but it shows they were in the same circles. In 1992, records show that Epstein donated $2,000 to Clinton's successful presidential campaign, a small fraction of the $62 million his campaign raised overall. This photo was taken in September 1993 after Clinton been sworn in as president. Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell attended an event for donors to a White House restoration. Then it gets more interesting. After Clinton left office, there were multiple trips linked to the Clinton Foundation where Epstein's plane was used. Asia, Africa, Europe, photos, flight logs, and events where they were seen together, sometimes alongside other high-profile figures. And then this hits. Images show Clinton around Epstein's circle, even with individuals later identified as victims. Though again, no victim has accused him of wrongdoing. The event was said to have been for donors, and records list Epstein and Maxwell donating $10,000 to the White House Historical Association the same day as the event. Hillary Clinton hosted the event with Bill Clinton. Several others attended and made donations. There's no allegation of impropriety. In her recent testimony to Congress, Hillary said she did not recall ever encountering Epstein. And this was all before Epstein's 2008 conviction for procuring A for pro. That's the part that keeps the conversation alive because you've got documented interactions, public appearances, and years of association. So these unsent draft emails, in this particular situation, have caught a lot of attention. What do you know about them? It also says Gates asked him to delete explicit personal details about his. Now, a representative for Gates strongly denied those claims, telling CNN they were, quote, absolutely absurd and absolutely false. And Gates himself was asked about this by a CNN affiliate in Australia. Take a listen to what he said here. Gates completely denied it, called it false, and said every minute he spent with Jeffrey Epstein was a mistake he regrets. Apparently, Jeffrey wrote an email to himself. That email was never sent. The email is, false. So I don't know what his thinking was there. It just reminds me, every minute I spent with him, I regret. And I, apologize that I did that. It's factually true that I was only at dinners. I never went to the island. I never met any women. And so, the more that comes out, the more clear it'll be that although the time was a mistake, it had nothing to do with that kind of behavior. What also stands out, Aaron, is how much Epstein was advising Gates on his philanthropic strategy more than previously known. And it appears in at least one of those emails that Gates took Epstein's advice seriously. For instance, an email exchange from August 2014 shows Gates and Epstein discussing Gates' approach to philanthropy. Epstein wrote to Gates, I am confident that with the right approach, you'll be able to raise at least $100 billion. Everyone of hyperwealth is dealing with the same issues. How to give some away. I can see that selling yourself is not your strong point. To which Gates replied, I agree. I should not use slides or even do a presentation. I do think a bit about how surprised I am at how tough doing good philanthropy is, and what really has worked might be interesting to them. I will find a time for us to talk this week. Those were not the only mean according to Epstein's calendars and emails which we went through. Epstein's email listed a dinner with Gates in December 2010, a post-lunch in February 2011, followed by a dinner in April and October 2011. The records also show a planned meeting in Norway in August 2012, another a week later, 2 meetings in February 2013, a possible dinner in September 2013, in which Epstein extended an invite to a Norwegian diplomat. We also saw a Google Calendar reminder for a Skype meeting with Gates in January 2014, a meeting, and a phone call in September 2014. Melinda Gates comes out, and you can tell this isn't just media noise for her. She's talking about how no girl should ever go through what those victims went through around Jeffrey Epstein. And you can hear it. It's not political. It's personal. She literally says it brings back painful memories from her marriage with Bill Gates. No girl should ever be put in the situation that they were put in by Epstein and whatever was going on with all of the various people around him. No. Girl, I mean, it's beyond heartbreaking, right? I remember being those ages those girls were. I remember my daughters being those ages, right? So, for me, it's personally hard whenever those details come up, right? Because, brings back memories of some very, very painful times in my marriage, but I have moved on from that. I purposely pushed it away and I moved on. Just unbelievable sadness, right? And again, I'm able to take my own sadness and look at those young girls and say, my God, how did that happen to those girls, right? And so for me, it's just sadness. Sadness for, I left my marriage. I had to leave my marriage. I wanted to leave my marriage. I felt I needed to eventually leave the foundation. So it's just sad. That's the truth, right? And it's kind of like at least for me, I've been able to move on in life. And I hope there's some justice for those now women, right? We see them standing up in front of microphones in DC. And then this hits big names like Elon Musk had publicly said they had nothing to do with Epstein after 2008. But now, emails in these files show messages like asking about parties on the island. Same with other figures who were still in contact with Epstein years later through meetings and lunches. So has Elon Musk. Yet the files contain at least 2 emails discussing just that. In one from the 24th of November 2012, Epstein writes, "How many people will you be for the Helita Island?" Moose responded the next day that it would probably just be him and his then wife, adding, quote, "What day night will be the wildest party on our island?" A year later, Moose wrote Epstein saying, quote, "We'll be in the BBI St. Bart's area over the holidays, BBI's British Virgin Islands. Is there a good time to visit?" To which Epstein replied, "Always space for you." It's unclear if that or the other visit took place. Representatives. For Musk did not immediately respond to a request for comment about the new emails. And Musk in 2019 told Vanity Fair, quote, "He tried repeatedly to get me to visit his island. I declined." Now Musk, you'll recall, famously posted this during his beef with the president this year. Quote, "Time to drop the really big bomb. Trump is in the Epstein files." Minutes later, he followed up with, "Mark this post for the future. The truth will come out." The fact that Musk was still in contact with Epstein after his conviction is truly shocking. On the record, ranging from Howard Lutnick to Elon Musk, who in questions asked by reporters and others, said that they had nothing, absolutely nothing to do with Epstein, especially after he was convicted in 2008, when in fact that these files show that many, many years after he was a convicted sex offender, these folks were still reaching out to him in some various capacity. The refusal of Musk about going to the parties even after these emails getting public also raises questions. Is he trying to hide something or perhaps trying to protect someone? Elon Musk, he said that he refused to go to the island, and then in these new files it came out, I think it was an email, that said, "What day or night will be the wildest party on your island?" to Jeffrey Epstein. Howard Lutnick apparently went there with his family and then also had lunch with Elon Musk. Also filmmaker Brett Ratner, who just made that new documentary about Melania Trump. Musk or lunch with Epstein? Lunch with Epstein. Yeah. Lutnick had lunch with Epstein. But Brett Ratner also was in a picture with Epstein and 2 women, Clinton. I mean, and those photographs of Prince Andrew where he says he doesn't remember anything about Virginia Dupra. And suddenly people are dragging names like Ellen DeGeneres into the Epstein narrative, calling her a bridge between Hollywood and Jeffrey Epstein. She didn't just visit the island, she Epstein's inner circle into the abyss, initiating them into the ritual consumption of human flesh as an ancient blood-drenched sacrament. Fresh, unredacted 2026 Epstein file dumps deliver the gut punch confirmation. Ellen ate her ex-partner an H-piece by cursed piece after the actress was eliminated in that blatantly suspicious car crash while she was closing in on the Hollywood pipelines. Investigators now confirm that after the accident, Ellen pulled strings to Clayman's body, locked it in her mansion freezer like unholy relics, and consumed her former lover in slow, deliberate occult ceremonies over the years. This is not some twisted modern fetish. This is primordial evil clawing its way back. People also think that Ellen was involved in On the Island, and some even say that she might have gotten an infection from there because there's so many videos of her going viral, talking about how she wants to eat human flesh. There should be no desire for you to eat any kind of human flesh, as far as I'm concerned. Like, I don't understand why you feel you need to, and you are in interviews talking about that. You keep talking about it. It's very weird. But, we'll park her on the side for a second, which I know is difficult to do. But I do believe that the set on Ellen's daytime show is exactly what it was on the island. And they did this on purpose because of connections. Just because her name wasn't mentioned in the file doesn't necessarily mean that this woman was misunderstood or some kind of angel. I don't believe that. But the blue-white lines, you then have the trees on the back. This was definitely done on purpose. And of course, she went along with it so that she can herself be successful. And Whoopi had to come out and address it herself, saying clearly she wasn't his friend, wasn't associated with him, and never even used that plane. In the name of transparency, can you put up, my name is in the files? It says Whoopi needs a plane to get to Monaco. John Lennon's char, it should say Julian Lennon's charity is paying for it. People are trying to turn me into, I wasn't his girlfriend. I wasn't as old for him. I was not only too old, but it was at a time, where this is just not, you used to have facts before you said stuff. So this is one of those moments where the Epstein files show how messy things are. But Whoopi thinks that a name appearing in documents doesn't automatically mean involvement. She said that she never got on the plane because she would have to do some things for this assistance from Epstein. It's like, really, that's the thing that's making you crazy, It's like, let's get realistic when I tell you people are trying to turn me into, I wasn't his girlfriend. I wasn't his friend for him. And no, I didn't get on the plane. Because you know what I would have to do to get on the plane? We were trying. Yeah. And she doesn't. And they're no. So they're trying to get me to get on a plane to get to this thing for Julian Lennon. Do you think the full truth about Epstein and the people around him will ever really come out? Or is this one of those stories that stays buried forever behind redactions and silence? Let me know what you think in the comments and subscribe for more stories that they do not want talked.